Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of the Township Council meetings established and adopted by the Township Council, which designated a time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this means to be provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We're using an electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. Request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device will be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, let the roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Ms. Grace? I'm here. Mrs. Albright Troxel? Here. Mrs. Stubbs?
She is on vacation.
Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mignon?
Here.
Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlemere?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Deputy Chief Manazzi?
Here.
Mr. Jallo?
Here.
We have a special presentation this evening, the Gloucester Township Hockey Association, New Jersey Future Stars Champion. Vice President Mignon, you can meet me down there, please. And now we're- Good evening, everyone. Approximately 2 months ago, I got an email from Mike McGee. Mike McGee had contacted myself and had advised us that the several players from the GTHA had participated in a U.S. ball hockey invitational. And just to give you a little background, about 10 years ago, the Gloucester Township Hockey Association came to council and the mayor and had asked for improvements to be made at the Lakeland facility. And the leadership of GTHA had indicated to us that making those improvements to that facility would expand the program and would benefit the players and our residents that enjoy that facility and are part of the GTHA. Tonight is a reflection of that investment that the township made into the GTHA, and we're here to recognize all of you and for their participating and being a part of our community. So, John, you come up here. Oh, Mike's designated you as the person. Okay, all right, okay. All right. Sorry to put you on the spot, John. He goes, John will do it. He goes. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the narrative that Mike had sent me. A few years ago, the USA Ball Hockey wanted to introduce a younger feeder program in the USA. So they created the Future Stars Invitational that was held in Buffalo this past August. Of this, there's a few states that participate: New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts. In previous years, New Jersey has had championship appearances, but never has won. Furthermore, this started out as a boys-only event. And last year, they introduced a 16U girls, and then in 2022, they added a 12U division for the first time. So the boys, they had well over 60 individual tryouts to be selected for Team New Jersey. Out of those, 7 local youth that play for GTHA made the team. Those individuals, I'm going to call them. You call them up here. Ryan Gallen, who is the captain. Ian Basilio, who is the assistant captain. Ethan Weitzel. Jason Hoffman. Jackson Fretz. Grayson Heller. And Aiden Peters.
Lucas Kostick.
Lucas Costa. The weekend of August 26th, the U13 boys New Jersey went undefeated and won the event in a resounding fashion, outscoring opponents 23-7. The boys' results, he included the results in this email. Okay, game 1, Team New Jersey 5 versus Team Massachusetts 1. Team New Jersey 5 versus Team New York 1. And then game 3, Team New Jersey 4 to Team PA 1. The semifinals, Team New Jersey 3 versus Team New York 1. And then in the finals, the New Jersey team won 6-3 over PA. Ian Basilio led the team of New Jersey in goals scored throughout the tournament and outscoring the opponents 23-7 in the tournament. Congratulations, gentlemen. So hold on, we'll bring the ladies up here as well. For the girls, they held 3 tryouts with 3 local youth that play for GTHA making the team. Those individuals are Jenna Whittick, the assistant captain. Ella Hoffman. And Hannah Albany. This year, the 12U girls went undefeated, as well as posting 5 shutouts, including 1 game that went to a 12-round shootout. The girls' results were Team New Jersey 1-0 over Massachusetts in game 2. Team New Jersey 3-0 over New York. And then game 3, Team New Jersey won over PA in a 12-round shootout. And the semifinals, Team New Jersey won 2-0. And in the championship, Team New Jersey beat Team PA 1-0. The game MVP in game 1 versus Massachusetts was Jenna Whittick. So I want to thank you for representing our community by going out there. I think that you represent our township well, all of you, the time and commitment that you put into it, and then to our parents that are out there and our coaches that spend the time with you. If you can give them a round of applause. The coaches, if you want to say something.
Hi, I'm Joe Tully, General Manager of Team New Jersey, as well as a GTHA board member. First and foremost, we just want to thank Mayor and Council for continued support. We wouldn't be able to celebrate things like this without the fantastic facilities that we have for these kids. Your time and generous donations and build out of the entire facility is fantastic. We have one of the best facilities in ball hockey, and it shows. Everybody that comes to our facility, top-notch facility, best around. So thank you.
Certificates here. Hannah Albany. Ella Hoffman. Jenna Whittick. Peters. Ryan Gallen. Lucas Costa.
Come on, John.
We'll take a 5-minute recess. If you guys want to take a picture, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Parents, if you want to come up as well.
Yes, it is. It's right.
Take a 5-minute recess. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, I saw,
Yes. I don't know what the next game is, but I think somebody else.
Yeah, that's why I'm changing it. It looked like you put something on.
It was hand sanitizer.
I'll wash my hands. Oh. If you need it. Yeah, I like it.
That's always been. Oh, really? It's funny dancing guys from football. You can't chill off. They miss a lot. But it was nice to start.
It's playing high school.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Are you serious? Oh, wow.
We lost my first.
Yeah. I still remember doing this kid actually like it's crazy. You know, once you get it, you get it. You know, they understand it.
Good to see you, sir. Nice to meet you.
Water left.
Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call again, please?
Mr. Hutchison? Ms. Grace? Here. Mrs. Albright Troxel? Yes. Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mignone?
Here.
Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlmeyer?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
Deputy Chief Manazzi?
Here.
Mr. Chadwick?
Here. When I have the public portion, this is for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to address council, please raise your hand. Each speaker is entitled to 3 minutes, and there's 15 minutes total in the public portion. Anyone wishing to speak on agenda items? Mr. Sweet?
Good evening, council. Sam Sweet from Ariel. I have a question on the no fair contract law. Does that also pertain to these RFPs?
So the RFPs are going out for request for proposals, beginning with professionals. Gloucester Township, regardless of the fair and open, requires everybody to go out for a bid proposal, bid process, even professionals.
Okay, but if someone violated the no fair rule by donating to a political, a PAC, they're prohibited from doing business with the township. So if they're on this list, would that preclude them from being?
Send in what you believe is incorrect, and we'll review it with the state regulation.
Well, I understand that. I'm asking though, if they violated the no fair contract, does that preclude them from, I'm not naming names, I'll send you the information, but.
The distinction you have to know is we have an ordinance that deals with our fair and open process. That ordinance was voted on by the residents of the community before it was adopted into ordinance by referendum. That requires all our contracts, professionals, any services, to go out for bids. Once you do that, then that contribution parts of that statute really don't apply if everyone is in a competitive, fair, and open process. So why don't you send in your specific request, and I'll respond to it as it seems.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Smithman, you had your hand up.
Before I check in, may I ask, does this have to do with from the workshop? You said I could bring it up during the agenda items. Is that considered the agenda item?
There, regarding the cannabis,
That's correct.
no, there will be a hearing for that. When we start that hearing, you'll be the first one to speak on that.
So this is the first public hearing. This is just for the different bids that are going up for different work projects going on in the community?
When we discuss the ordinance for cannabis, I'll call on you first, okay? Because you had your.
Well, no, I will raise my hand again. I'm shamefully, I'm still getting accustomed to
There's
city
nothing to be
council
ashamed
meetings.
about.
But there's different bids for different businesses that are going on posted. This first reading, that's all that this has to do with?
I'm not following here, so,
Well, somebody just asked a
When?
question on RFP items for people making bids for different,
okay.
things that are
Snow
going on.
removal and broker record health. There's a bid report.
and the broker record health, that is, it said Brown and Brown?
Brown, and then Connor Strong and Buckaloo.
What does that pertain to?
They solicit, they're a broker of record. They try to get us the best health care for our employees, for the municipality.
Oh, so it's only for people that are employed within the municipality for Gloucester
Those that
Township?
are covered under it. Mr. Carter's doing the workshop, he briefly spoke about that.
Was that the workshop today?
Yes,
This is the 14th of November still? 2022?
yes, it's still November 14th.
So the healthcare, you said everybody was self-insured, but now there is a policy, you're saying that has to do with this agenda item?
No, we're
This
just going out.
broker
We
of record
we solicited bids for broker of record and also for snow removal.
So what is the broker of record health? That's what I'm asking, because there was self-insurance that you made a request for funds for an additional $4 million, correct?
So,
Because there was not enough money to pay for the rest of the year to cover everyone. I come from where I had insurance and I didn't get covered.
Ms. Smith, there's two different things here. There's a bid report where we put out an RFP, a request for proposal. It's posted on our website and companies respond to it to gain work from the township. So whether it's snow removal or it's a broker of health, Okay, so we're accepting a bid report today, and then we also award the individuals that are going to receive those particular contracts. What you had asked for earlier is when you talked about the cannabis ordinance. So
I can speak on several items.
yes, you
Okay,
can.
so that's why, so,
Okay, but if you're going to speak about the cannabis ordinance, I'll bring you back up again when we speak about that during the public hearing.
well, that's very kind that you think that you are going to give me permission, but I do believe I'm allowed to raise my hand and ask to speak during the
Ms. Smith,
portion
I'm
that's.
not disagreeing with you, and I'm not trying to.
I'm not saying that you are. I
Trying to
appreciate
explain to
you suggesting that you would grant me permission, but I'm also allowed to speak on this
Please
topic
continue,
also. I
Ms.
just want to make sure I speak at the proper time. I'm still getting accustomed to the protocol. Can I ask a question about the bid for the broker of health?
Absolutely.
My question is, what is it?
I explained that earlier. I said, these are brokers, okay? These are firms that go out and solicit the best health insurance coverage for our employees.
And there are two.
These are two that responded to it.
So this is approving that?
Yes, it's a bid, well, we accept the bid report, and then we name one of those two as the business to receive and become the broker of record.
Oh, so it's a competition.
When you submit things to, they're responding to it.
That's for a 3-year period.
I'm sorry, Mr. Curtis?
That's for a 3-year period.
That's
There's a
what they're putting-
resolution on here to award a contract. It happens to be Connor Strong Buckler. That would be for a 3-year period. They help to put together the health insurance, they keep the costs down, they meet with employees, and they also get involved in negotiations, because we have 6, 7 contracts to negotiate.
Well, I thought that there was, the employees of the Gloucester Township municipality were self-insured. That was why you needed the additional $4 million to make up for the
Correct, we
additional
are self-insured, but
additional healthcare that was not covered.
There's a plan document, there's an administrator that, in this case, I believe is Aetna, there's excess insurance, there is Express Scripts, there's different elements of being self-funded. It's not just one big pot of money we just pay out based on claims. Those claims have to be processed to make sure that they're appropriate.
So the Gloucester Township employees, the people that work for the municipality have self-insurance, and now you're accepting bids for an insurance company to assist them.
No, a brokerage company to help us to select the right insurance for the employees. There's a lot more involved.
I know, I tried to have insurance. I had Blue Cross Blue Shield. It turned into Keystone Health Plan East, and then it turned into something called Cobra. I can tell you, after urinating blood for several years, it's important that you actually get it to your employees. So that's why I'm asking a question on something that says broker of health. When I see that there was an additional amount of $4 million that was requested, it looks like it's being refunded. So they're giving it back, and they changed their mind on the self-insurance.
No, it's an emergency appropriation. It is financed. It was approved by the local finance board at the state of New Jersey. And with the cooperation of the Division of Local Government Services, there was a hearing that was on Zoom, and a decision was made.
I don't
by
have
the board.
access to the internet.
Please. And
I'm
the
just
board,
thinking-
the board voted, and they voted unanimously to permit the municipality to finance the $4 million over a 7-year period. So we're responsible for paying 1/7 of that amount, and I'll answer questions as they come up, when this comes up as a second reading.
Well, we have a second reading of public hearing. Thank you, Ms. Smith, and your time's up. Is that Ms. Coyne?
Denise Coyne, Choose Landing.
Good evening.
Good evening. Resolution 22:11-313. I see you're moving $334,225,000 from sanitation. Can you explain what exactly sanitation covers?
So where it comes from?
What it covers? Sanitation, like
Yeah.
what?
Christie, that's not the land charge, that's the actual charges for the companies that collect trash, recyclables,
There's money in there for public works for the dumpsters.
Okay, so included in this is trash pickup.
Correct.
Okay, so,
Christie, am I correct?
I guess one of my main questions is, when you decided to raise taxes, you were told us it was because you had to pay more for trash pickup. But now we're finding $334,000 to move from trash pickup to someplace else.
Now, I'm sure that was one of many contributing factors to the tax increase in the budget, and not just the sole one.
But I mean, $334,000 is a lot of money
So
to
is
be
it
able
so
to
is it
move
seven-
after you told us you had to raise taxes because
so
we
is
didn't
it
have enough money.
$73 million budget. $73
Included in
million.
that number, included in the sanitation number is the money for the MUA, the contingency for the trucks. That's all part of it, the recycling, the grass pickup. It's not just,
Right, it covers the global agreement between us and the MUA, and we're responsible for all maintenance of all vehicles.
So we have a global agreement with the MUA.
You had a global agreement since 1990.
Okay, well, it's the first I'm hearing of it, so I wasn't aware of it. So do we pay the MUA money?
We do. They perform a service for us and we pay them money.
Okay, so then the landfill, $200,000, can you explain what that is?
That would be tipping fees. That would be for the disposal of the garbage, which goes to the incinerator.
Okay,
and that has to also do with the, single stream recycling.
Yeah, the recycling also.
so were they costs, I mean, I guess I'm asking why all of a sudden we need $200,000 more? That's not a cost that's easily anticipated?
No,
Like
it's estimated and it varies.
What's it,
We
is it,
saw a huge increase during the pandemic where people were basically stuck at home and cleaning out the basements and cleaning out their garages.
They
No.
take the trash and they weigh it, and then you pay a per ton fee. So whatever the trash weighs that week, that month, that's how we pay. So there's no way to know exactly it's an estimate. There's no way to know exactly how many tons are gonna go to the landfill.
okay, and then, the township attorney, $100,000, can you explain that one?
Yeah, I mean, that's for all of our attorneys, our labor attorneys. We have outside attorneys. If you look at the RPRQ, you'll see that there are different attorneys that are appointed, not just Mr. Carter.
Okay. And then the bids received for Brown and Brown and Connor Strong Buckaloo. You chose Connor Strong Buckaloo, but there's nothing here like to give us any indication as to why. What do you base that on? Is it commissions or, I mean, how do you determine, what information do they send you for you to be able to pick one of the two?
They send a proposal and each one submits a proposal. I review it with Dave Carlmer and Christie Eric, and we make a determination of who we would recommend to the governing body. In this particular case, one of the reasons that I'm recommending Connor Strong is that we're right now presently working on projects together that we're trying to bring to fruition. The other is that the other firm, Brown and Brown, is from up near New York City. And I don't believe that they're going to have the same familiarity with the providers that are in network in our area right now.
So
it's
then your
Cooper,
decision
Dallas.
wasn't based on cost?
They did not submit a proposal on cost.
Okay, well, that's what I was asking. So it's not based on cost. You decide based on who you think the best company for the job is.
I do.
Okay,
And
so,
I don't just do that. I do that with Mr. Carlmer and Ms. Eric.
well, I meant the
Ms. Corn, I'm
township.
gonna need you to wrap it up, please. There's one more hand out in the audience I'd like to speak.
Okay, and the resolution for authorizing the advertising of the public works. Can you tell me how much money was set aside in the capital budget for that project?
I believe 250,000, it might be 200,000. And that's for the safety of that building. That's the old Public Works building.
I know which one it is. And do you know this particular project? Do you know what the estimated cost of this project is?
I just know it's gone up since the pandemic, because everything's gone up since the pandemic. So we really need to get it out for bid and find out what kind of numbers. we're looking at.
Okay, but this particular thing right here, what are they doing? What,
They're going to, what I understand, they're going to pin the corners of the building for safety reasons so that it's not in any kind of jeopardy of collapse. Which I don't believe it is right now, but it's an old building. It's been around before I got here. And the next step is going to be to fix some of the holes in the roof. We still use that.
Right.
That building has office space in front, and we have our wash bay inside. And according to our agreement with what was Salterra, it's now Interstate, they're permitted, because they pay a monthly lease, they're permitted to work on their trucks in there.
so they do lease part of that building?
They do lease part of that building. They
All right.
also pay lease for the property on Cross Keys Road.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Coyne.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sweet, you're our last speaker.
Good evening, Council. Sam Sweet again from Ariel.
Good evening again.
Couple of follow-up questions. I know we're self-insured, and I know we're getting a broker. Where's the JIF fall into this whole equation?
It's really separate. It's not the same as it's not the same as the HIF. We're in the JIF, which is, it's a joint fund of several municipalities and counties in this area.
But how does that come into play with us being self-insured? Like, we're paying into the JIF, which is, I believe, run by Connor Strong as well. So how does that come into play with?
It does not have any.
So that's something totally separate?
Totally separate.
So why are we paying into the JIF? What does that cover?
Covers our general liability, property and casualty insurance, accidental death and dismemberment, those type of coverages.
Okay, that's
Not health insurance.
not health insurance. Okay, I just didn't know how that all came into play. I
It's
just
like
want.
you have insurance on your home.
All right. With the landfill, 200,000. I understand. I heard that we can't estimate it, or it's only an estimation based on the prior years. So, what about the income coming in from the landfill?
Let me say this, it also covers the recyclables, and the recyclables right now, at this point in time, they're charging $110 per ton. We pay about $63 or $64 a ton for trash. So it's more expensive for us to get rid of recyclables right now than it is to get rid of trash. And that number just went up exponentially over this year. At one point, it was $5 a ton. Now it's $110 a ton.
Okay, I understand, but my question was, does that number take into effect the income that's coming in from the landfill? Because I believe that we're leasing the landfill, and I believe it's, I think it's 10,000 a month that we're getting.
I think we're talking about two different things
Yeah,
here.
we're not leasing the landfill.
Though,
No, so you're talking about.
isn't that a landfill?
He's talking about tipping fees and when we're dropping off our sanitation. Yeah, we have a lease on our landfill. That has nothing to do
But
with
that says landfill, so that's why, hence my,
two different.
so we
things.
have two landfills?
This is when we're dumping off our sanitation. That's what it is.
Yes, it's going to the incinerator, not to the landfill.
Yeah.
Okay, but it does say, it says landfill here. That's what, hence my confusion, and probably
Because
hence,
that's the term that the state of New Jersey prescribes that you must use in the budget.
okay, so then with the income, how come, can I ask this question? How come it wasn't on the budget? The income from the leasing of the landfill?
I don't believe that we've taken any.
I can bring up the video at the second public portion of where they said they're leasing it. I believe the amount is 10,000 a month, and it was done in March because it was a ribbon cutting ceremony. And it wasn't on the budget, and the budget wasn't produced until May.
We have to look at that, Christina.
I'm not aware of receiving money from the landfill. I'm
Not aware of it
not,
either.
Ribbon cutting was
I'm
in
not
May.
sure what you're referring to.
Same time, I mean,
Yeah.
still before the budget was there and the income is coming in.
We'll look at it and we'll get back.
All right, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
That was the first public portion. Bid report.
2022 to 2023 snow removal and broker record health.
I entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mrs. Albright Troxel?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Waive the reading, accept the minutes of workshop meeting October 12th, 2022, regular meeting October 12th, 2022, and regular meeting October 24th, 2022. Entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace?
Abstain from the October 12th workshop and yes to October 12th meeting and the October.
Mrs. Albright Troxel?
I abstain from the October 12th workshop and also the October 12th meeting.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes to all. Next is ordinance. There will be a second reading and public hearing. Ordinance 0-22-18, ordinance authorizing execution of tax abatement agreement between the Township of Gloucester and Emerson Drive Equities LLC for premises block 13301, lot 1 pursuant to C441 PL 1991, NJSA 40A 21-1 et sec, and ordinance number 0-19-16. This is a tax abatement, 5-year tax abatement for the entire building where the Chipotle, Smoothie King, and Wingstop is located. We're now open up the public hearing on this. Anyone wish to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace?
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-22-21, refunding bond ordinance, providing funds to pay an emergency appropriation, self-insurance fund budget deficit, authorizing the issuance of up to $4 million of general obligation refunding bond of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, to finance the cost thereof, making certain determination and covenants in connections therewith, and authorizing certain related actions in connections with the foregoing. This helps fund the deficit created in the township self-insurance fund that was created by unanticipated costs and expenses charged to the fund for the budget year 2022, and it pays the cost of issuance of any indebtedness issued by the township to temporarily or permanently finance the said appropriation. Mr. Carson, anything you want to add to that?
No.
Okay, we'll now open up the public portion. Mr. Heimbach. Mr. Heimbach, I'm going to ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes. You can come back up again once someone else wants to speak. There's no time limit on the public hearing. But that way we keep it flowing. We're not standing there for long periods of time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Pete Heinbaugh, Morningstar Court. It seems like quite an undesirable thing to borrow $4 million for current expenses. I understand these are emergencies, unanticipated and over the budget and things like that, but doesn't seem like a desirable way to pay for current expenses. So I hope we considered and discarded other alternatives before we came up with the idea to incur debt. But my first question, we're borrowing $4 million, but at the last meeting, the projection was we're going to overspend in this area $3.58 million. And that projection was done through the first 9 months of the year and projecting to the end of the year.
And I believe right now, we're heading more towards the $4 million.
So can I answer?
Yes.
So the way the law is written, if you borrow $4 million and at the end of the year, we only need 3.5, then you would cancel the 500,000 and only borrow what you need. So we just applied for 4 million just to be on the safe side.
So we're not going to,
If you borrow
That's why it says
if you only
up
spent 3
to.
million, then you would only borrow 3 million.
okay, so we're not going to
Up
actually
4 million.
execute, incur this debt until later, until after we have a final number. We're not going to borrow this money next week. We're going to borrow it next year sometime, is what.
That's a question right now. Technically, I believe that the local finance board and Division of Local Government Services requires us to take out a note before December 31st.
So there's a note, this is.
So we're gonna have a discussion about that, to see if we can go into January. And really the rationale behind that is that the financial advisors are telling us that around Christmas time is the worst time to do either a note or a permanent issuance. So there is still ongoing discussion about when that will happen.
Well, speaking of notes then, why was, before when the township had this type of budget spending issue, we issued TANs, the tax anticipation notes, to cover the spending. Why wasn't that?
Because a TAN is a completely different mechanism for financing. And a TAN only gives you a slight amount of time. I think it's within a year. Then you got to pay the entire amount back in its entirety. So that would have needed to be raised. You wouldn't have done it by a TAN. What you could have done is we talked about this, let it go its course, then we're going to be over on our budget by $3.8 million, which means you have to raise it the following year as a deferred charge. Didn't seem reasonable and didn't seem like the right thing to do.
Taxation versus debt is what, if we went the
We
TAN.
explored all of the alternatives that we had.
Another question. Our budget, the 2022 budget wasn't adopted till May or June. I think it was June actually. Was this kind of overspending in the medical expenses? Was that already on a trajectory of, we knew we were going to overspend? It must have been. If we're over $4 million.
We became concerned after the budget was adopted.
No, it wasn't adopted till June.
I understand.
Wasn't this?
I don't know the date that it was adopted. What I'm saying to you.
Wasn't this issue
No,
identified
we
sometime?
did not realize that we had this problem when we adopted the budget.
Should we have? I mean,
$4 million. I don't believe so, no. And we've closely followed it since I would say probably sometime the beginning of July.
In the future, not very in the future, he brings up an interesting point. We probably should look at this particular account that we say self-insured and have similar to what we did 15 years ago with the receipts for cash receipts.
Just get periodic updates on it.
Yeah, just so that we don't get the situation. So I think it's about-
I understand.
okay, my time's about up. I'll ask one more question. Again, we have the COVID relief money, right around this $3.5 million roughly, exactly to cover things that unexpected because of the COVID situation. I mean, it's a good fit for this, and it eliminates the need to incur debt for current expenses, which we should avoid. We should work hard to avoid. Explain again why we're choosing not to use COVID relief funds to pay these expenses.
I'm anticipating using that in next year's budget.
Well, that's not an answer. We need it for
Pete, I gave you
a
an answer.
$4 million debt.
You don't like my answer.
No, for
but that's
$4
my
million debt, we
response-
need a
but that's
better
my
answer.
response to
Well, that's not like, it's not whether I like it or
Thank
dislike
you,
it. It's not really an
Pete. We're
answer.
not gonna do this like we did last time. Thank you very much.
I'll re-ask the question, because we should get a better answer than.
Pete, there are
Don't- I
people
don't
that are
want to.
waiting to speak behind you. You can come back up again
Will
if
you,
you have.
will you answer the question better next time I ask?
I think I answered it. Thank you. Ms. Smithman, you had your hand up for quite some time.
Hello, good evening, council. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. I spoke earlier in this meeting during the bid report, asking a question about the broker of record health. I think that you forgot to ask my name. Is that correct? I did not introduce my name or my address
Ms.
where I'm.
Smithman, we know who you are.
just making sure that you know that I did not give my name, which is Shaughnessy Smithman, or my address, which is the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. I spoke after Sam Sweet the first time he spoke. I did not introduce myself. That is typically asked during these meetings. You're asking for an additional $4 million to make up for health insurance that was unanticipated. If I could continue on with the question that Mr. Heinbold had, that was, why don't you use the COVID money that is there? Could you please answer that question? If there's already 3/4 of the amount, which is over $3 million, if that's available, why is that not being utilized? Because you had mentioned earlier that there was a Sun and Company that you're not even sure if you're going to participate with them. So that's even less people that would need this money. So you really may not need this additional $4 million. If there are people that you don't anticipate to be doing business with in the next year, I ask why you don't use the money that you already have right now.
Can I answer?
Ms. Smith and I going to have the same response I gave Mr. Heinbaugh. Yes, Mr. Cardis.
So you cannot mechanically, you cannot do what Mr. Heinbaugh is suggesting and what you're suggesting. And correct me if I'm wrong, CFO. You can't, once you have the budget created and it's done and it's adopted, tax bills go in. So it's based on that levy that was in that budget. You cannot just add $3.4 million because you're going to go over. They don't allow that. You know,
Not to
it's
add
not-
it, they're
it's
saying
not
that
permitted.
the funds are already.
Two ways to deal with it. One would be to do a deferred charge, in which case the whole thing gets raised next year. And then you're going to have a cap problem. You're going to have all kinds of problems. The other way is this way, and this is the way that I recommended that we handle this. Went to the financial analyst, I went to the bond council, discussed it. This is not a green stamp approval process with the local finance board. It is very, very involved, very tedious. A lot of questions are asked.
It's about healthcare.
Questions that you're asking now, how could this have happened? What
I'm
happened?
not asking how it could have happened. I'm just saying that the funds are already there from something, from the COVID fund that people we were given funds.
I would never have recommended to do that. Never. To create a deferred charge and then take the chance that the bond.
In my
bond rating for
experience,
the township would go down significantly because of a deferred charge. Not gonna recommend.
in my experience, when it comes to healthcare, I have several cousins that all live in the South Jersey area. One is a Lisa Wilkins. She was previously Lisa Smithman. She said that a friend of hers received an operation on her intestinal tract and they left feces inside of her body and that she had to go back in to be reoperated on. It's a lot of times when it comes to things for healthcare, I'm not acknowledging medical mistakes. Everyone is deserving of healthcare. Is it going to the proper people? Healthcare is for everyone, so it's always proper if somebody receives healthcare, but is it going to all the people that have health conditions? Is it going to them? Because to hear things such as that, and she said when she was taking care of her mother, who was Loretta Smithman, that everybody gathered around, asked her how she was doing, and that once everybody was there for less than a month, they said they just went back to their own lives. She said, that's the truth. Once the truth came out, everybody just went back to their own lives. So is this money actually going to the people that get the health care within this township that I've noticed living here since February 2015? It looks like some people are not getting all the health care that they could, and some people have additional health care. You can tell just by the appearance. So I'm just asking.
So that statement you made, Ms. Smith, how can you
Which
say
one?
that? This is for our employees. Are you intimately involved and have knowledge that our employees are not receiving proper health coverage?
No,
So you made the statement that you want to make sure it's getting to the proper people.
I want to make sure that everyone that is in need of healthcare is receiving it. There is no improper medical treatment. If somebody is ill, they should be treated. I just want to make sure that everybody that has an ailment or illness is getting the treatment. And for you to ask for an additional $4 million when there's already a $3 million put aside for something called a COVID relief, that money could be utilized for this self-insurance that you're asking for. I'm just asking, when there's that much amount of money in excess, since the COVID scare is now over, could that money be utilized to look into getting people health coverage, the actual treatment, not just the coverage, actually treating them?
You actually said that the law says you cannot do that,
Cannot
correct?
do that. The only thing that could have happened would be an over expenditure of the health insurance line item, which then creates a deferred charge for the following year. When Wall Street sees that and the bond rating agencies see that, they're going to downgrade our bonds. I cannot afford to do that. I would never recommend that to the governing body nor to the mayor. And so what I recommended is what is here.
But to take the COVID money to pay for the bond that you're asking, well, you could use the money to pay for the insurance, is that's what you're saying. You're saying that can't be done, but it is
You
still.
can't just pay money because you have the money. It has to be appropriated. It has to be in the budget. The state of New Jersey
Well,
has.
then why was President Mercado's response that he just wanted to use it next year? His response was not that you can't. Now you're saying that the answer is you
Right,
can't.
He can anticipate it in next year's budget.
He's anticipating to use it for something else. If the answer is, if you never
Another
could,
year, it's a different
Ms.
fiscal
Smithman,
year.
your time is up. You can come back up again if you'd like to speak if no one else has any other comments. Mr. Crew, followed by Mr. Sweet, followed by Mr. Polidoro. Please,
Evening,
everyone,
council.
we're trying to adhere to the 5 minutes. Sorry, I have to cut folks off, but go ahead.
Sure, Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates. I'd like to just dig in on the specifics with regard to Pete's question of, could this have been anticipated, given the fact that the budget wasn't finalized till the May-June timeframe? And so could I ask both, President Mercado, could I request that Township Administrator answer the question? And since we have the CFO here as well, answer the question of whether or not there was any indication up until the May-June timeframe that we would have an overage with regard to our health costs.
Sorry, Mr. Cars.
My answer to that is no. We did not know when we adopted the budget that we had a problem with this magnitude.
Is there?
My answer would be the same. No, we did not know. We don't know the claims until they actually are received from the health insurance. So a lot of times what could happen is that somebody could have a surgery or a cancer treatment or a baby maybe 2 months ago, and we don't get the claim until, and as the CFO, because of the HIPAA law, I don't always know when somebody has a major surgery until the claim is, so there could be a 2-month lag time. So because of that, it didn't come aware to me until the claim started coming in that there was an issue, and I saw it on the report, and I reached out to the HR representative and got some more information, and I brought it to Tom's attention, and that was probably around the August
It was July, August, and that's when
when
we realized we
the
might have.
heavy claims started to come in. So to the answer, when the budget was introduced and adopted, I was not aware of them.
Okay.
And it just got worse.
So the claims, the claims that would indicate we're gonna have an overage began, let's say, in July, and we're now in November, so let's run from July through October, 4 months. We were doing about $1 million over per month? Is that a correct understanding?
That's what we anticipate out for the remainder of the year, based on more information that we now have on these claims, which
Okay,
they were not anticipated at that time.
Sadly, we have a lot of different claims that are considered to be catastrophic. And
I mean, that's a pretty scary number, $1 million a month. So
Remember,
do we
we're
anticipate that
We're
going
insuring,
forward?
we're insuring almost 1,100 lives.
Okay,
It's a lot.
that is a lot. So I guess that makes me think, does self-insuring still make the most sense for this township?
I don't know that. That's what we're talking right now to the broker, because I'm questioning that right now. we've been self-funded since 1991. I could say
This has not happened.
unequivocally, we have saved hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Only in 2002 did we hit the aggregate attachment point, I believe. And at that point, I suggested to council, based on my meetings with the broker, that we switch to a fully insured plan. Fully insured plan will tease you with a carrot because they'll give you a nice premium rate, and then they'll bump the numbers up the following year. Known for it. So the following year, I convinced council to go back to self-funding, and everything settled down, and self-funding has been working very well for us ever since. I verify that with the broker. I see that we're paying less in premiums and less in medical and prescription costs than we would be if we were in a state health benefit plan, or if we were in a fully insured plan, or if we were in South Jersey HIP. I verify all that information with the broker because I want to know that we're still saving money, and we save money. Now we have a problem because I don't know if it's the right direction to continue, as you just pointed out, to continue going. You may have to get out of the self-insured.
Understood.
If
Now-
that happens, it'll probably happen around January 1st.
Okay, understood. Thank you. So obviously, I realize HIPAA laws apply here, but do we have indication as to whether this scenario is going to be ongoing? If this $1 million a
As
month
you
is
point out,
ongoing, or if,
There's HIPAA concerns here. Say this, that there are prognoses that are not going to get that much better, and they will actually continue. The life expectancy will continue for a considerable number of years. So we will be on the hook for some very, very expensive treatments and drugs for the next couple of years.
okay,
If that answers that, I don't think that's violating any of the HIPAA regulations.
no, I don't believe so. All right, being cognizant of my time, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. Mr. Sweet.
Good evening, council, again. Couple things, Mr. Cardis, you said was, you compare saving money via the self-funded versus being an insurance broker. But Mr. Krug asked, going forward, so right now we're over $4 million being spent. So are we weighing, like, we're over budget by $4 million, correct? That's why we're borrowing this money.
That's why we did the emergency.
Okay, so if this continues, we're going to be over having actual insurance, correct? If this happens again next year.
No, we're gonna need to budget more money. And again, I'm not saying we're staying self-insured. We could go fully
Well,
insured.
no, I understand that, but you said when he said, is it better to be self-insured or not? If this continues, you said to him, well, I'm not really sure. Well, you just,
That's what we're talking about right now with the broker on a daily basis.
so then what's the broker kind of saying right now?
I'm not at liberty to talk about that right now. We're in negotiations right now with the patrol division, and that's our largest unit. So I'm really not going to cover that, Sam.
Okay, because, well, why didn't you just answer that to him, Mr. Krug, and say, well, I'm not at liberty to say, instead of saying, well, I gotta look into it, because you're already looking into it.
I just told you what the options are. A fully
Okay.
insured plan, a self-insured plan,
State health benefits plan,
state health
going
benefit.
into a HIP, health
Right.
insurance fund.
Right.
So those are options that are being made available.
You stated that you were looking at possibly pushing this off until next year because it's the most expensive time to borrow is around the Christmas time.
I did say that, yes.
Okay, so if you push it off to next year, then you could use the COVID funds and it wouldn't affect the budget, which you said.
You're not going to consider the COVID funds.
But could you, my question was, could you do, that would bypass what you said. If you push this off to next year, you're gonna have, the COVID money would be available. I understand you're saying you're not going to use it, which I don't like that answer either. I don't understand why, but it is what it is. But you could do that if you pushed it off to next year,
You can ask, see what they say, but they're not.
if you pushed it off to next
I
year,
wouldn't recommend to do that. I wouldn't.
you wouldn't recommend to push it off to next
I
year?
recommend what this year, Sam.
Okay,
I recommend-
I'm asking though, you said,
I don't agree with applying the money towards the 2023 year. No matter how you do it, whether you do it now if it was legal to do it, or whether you do it in January if it was legal to do it. I don't agree with using that money for that. I agree with what we're doing here. I think it's fiscally responsible and it's the right thing to do. We got hit with a catastrophic year of health losses, and that happens. And we just happen to be self-funded and it hurt.
okay, I understand that, but we're looking for different ways to not take the hit because,
I just said unequivocally, I disagree with using it now if you could, or using it in 2023 if you could, other than putting it in the budget as an anticipated revenue to help offset the amount that might be raised by taxation. That's my opinion.
okay. Did we look at the capital projects that are not completed or that aren't going to be completed to move some of that money to offset this and borrow a lesser amount?
We always look at capital projects. Capital budget's tight.
I mean,
You wouldn't be able to apply this to capital because in order for it to be capital, it has to have a 5-year lifespan or more, and health insurance is the operating budget, and it's not allowed to be capitalized in the capital budget.
but then that would be a way you could do that next year to move money.
You would just create a revenue line
to
item
finish.
in next year's budget.
It's my understanding, which you've said, coming from you, that if the capital project, you move money every year from the capital projects into the budget. You've done that every year.
Do not do it.
You have done that every
We
year,
have done it
okay?
in the past, but we have not done it every year.
Well, you're actually, when you're doing it in the budget, you're actually paying off your debt service.
Correct.
You're not using it to offset operating expenses. You're using it to pay off the debt service fee.
Pass a resolution to cancel it, it then becomes.
Cancel what? Debt?
The debt.
You can't cancel debt. If you borrow $5 million and you don't use it, okay, you still borrow the 5 million, you still have to pay back the 5 million, and we don't pay it back. We continue going on.
You borrow 5 million hypothetically, and the state says, okay, you can cancel 500,000 of that. You then would anticipate that as a line item in the 2023 budget, in which case it's considered by the state to be reducing debt service. So you still have the $5 million in debt outstanding for whatever the maturity schedule is on the debt. But that amount is being applied to debt service.
And you're taking that 500,000 and adding it to the budget as income, as an income line item
Correct.
next year. So if you look at this year's capital budget, I'm sure well, from quick glance, it's at least 500,000. There's probably more projects that aren't completed, and it being November, some of those projects aren't going to be completed. You could move that money to the next year's budget and then use the COVID money again to, $4 million to borrow on what we've borrowed already is a lot of money to borrow and continually borrow and borrow and borrow, and we're continually sinking down into debt. So I'm asking council to start thinking outside the box, and
Can't do it.
you can't do it or won't do it.
Can't do it. There are in the form of bond anticipation notes. We got 2 notes, one from 2021 and one from 22, because we didn't do a capital budget in, was it 19 or 20?
Whatever you're.
So right now we have 16 million in bond anticipation.
Money we should do a capital, but it's very small.
Right. So we have 16 million, I think 16 million 5 in bond anticipation notes. Eventually, that's going to have to be converted into bonds. You can only float a note for a certain period of time.
Understood,
So you
but
couldn't
again,
go- So you couldn't go in there and cancel any project in there because it's not permanently financed. If it were permanently financed, you could do that, and by resolution, cancel that amount before the year end. You cannot go in and take a bond anticipation note and cancel a portion of that and put it in your budget. It's just not legal.
and we didn't combine those bond anticipatory notes this year? I thought we did.
No, we did not. We have not permanently financed since, I want to say,
35 million back in
yeah,
19.
whenever it was, 19.
It was 35 million. I thought we did one over the summer.
No, we did not. They're still in the form of bond anticipation notes.
Sam, I'll have you come back up again if you have any more questions.
Thank you.
Right.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from the Historic Village of Ariel. Before I speak, I was wondering if council can bring their microphones a little closer to them, and when Ms. Everett speaks, if we can get her microphone. Can't hear her halfway back, let alone all the way back. And I think what she's saying is extremely important, if you just wouldn't mind. It looked like Mr. Carter's answered in the affirmative when Paul had asked at an average of 1 million per month. If you expand that out and you're saying that this could be a reoccurring, Justin is one anonymous individual that we won't go into, that could turn into 12 million in a year's time.
I would anticipate that wherever direction we go in is going to be capped. If you're fully insured, you're capped at your premiums, whatever they are. I think right now it's going to be tough to get a decent proposal for fully insured because of our experience.
So are you considering putting the employee's insurance on in the marketplace, getting insurance like Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield? Is that what you're exploring as an option?
That's what we do. We explore
Right.
the state health benefits. We explore staying self-funded. We explore fully insured. We're exploring the South Jersey HIF. There are a number of things that we're looking at.
So if you enter into the marketplace and you go on to new insurance, would it not be absorbed or at least considered under the Affordable Care Act that protected by the pre-existing condition clause in the ACA? So if you go in, that pre-existing condition should be covered. If you go to a better plan that has a greater catastrophic coverage, they can't discriminate against a township under the ACA pre-existing condition, correct? That should give some leverage as you shop.
Ray, I'm not going to speak like I'm a health broker. I'm not.
I'm sorry.
I'm not going to speak like I'm a health broker. I'm not a health broker.
Who is it that looks into these things for the township? If you're not doing it, who's looking at?
I have people at Connor Strong that are looking into all this stuff for us.
Is that what we get for our service fees, or is that an additional? Like when
It's part of the overall fee.
Okay, do our public employees pay anything into this healthcare as well?
Yes, they do.
Okay. All right, so.
Chapter 78.
Okay, I was just asking the affirmative, but if that's the case, and we can look at something in that, because if you're moving forward at $1 million per year, or a month, I'm sorry, you could be looking at some huge numbers, and that COVID money is not going to scratch the surface of what's going to happen here in the next year or two. Now, I think the fact that we're not speaking on why the council decided to put that over $3 million of COVID relief money into next year rather than this. Had you done so, and it was just a suggestion to these folks here, putting that into the budget this year. And when you addressed someone earlier, you said you can't do it afterwards, but it was suggested beforehand. It had that, was it 3.6? Thereabouts?
3.4.
3.4. Would you have not had to borrow if you had had that COVID money in the general fund this year?
I don't know how you can equate that. To me, they're mutually exclusive. You would have put that money into the budget, what would it have done? It would have reduced the overall amount to be raised by taxation, unless you were to bump up the appropriation by 3.5 million. We just told you, we did not realize that we would need to put as much money as we did in health insurance. There is a tracking, and the local finance board requested it, of the last 5 years. What did you budget? How'd you finish out? In each case, we budgeted the appropriate amount and finished out with spending less than what we budgeted. Just this year is when it went boom.
What was the surplus for this incoming budget? What was your surplus remaining?
I think we were 3,165,000.
And that money's not earmarked at any point for
No,
anything?
we
Is it usable funds?
Anticipated it in the 2023 budget,
Right, I mean,
2022 budget.
gotcha. I mean, you got a tall order here, you got a lot of work, but given the fact that you answered in the affirmative to Paul, the future doesn't look very bright for us. You're gonna have a difficult job, but it's gonna fall on us. That's not easy. I don't envy you, but sometimes, and I can't even fault you. I've said in the past that you're bad at your job every other year and you hold the line every other year, but this is gonna be tough. I don't envy you, but we're gonna hate being us because it's gonna land on us, right?
It's a difficult situation.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Mr. Heimball?
Pete Heinbaugh, Morningstar Court. Again, I'm just focused on the decision versus the alternatives to borrowing this $4 million versus another option. Every year, we produce a budget, and we have ups and downs, sanitation, medical expenses, salaries, overtime goes up and down, up and down. Every year, we end up with 3, 4, 1 year, $5.5 million surplus at the end of the year. Have we projected what our year-end surplus for 2022 will be?
It's too soon.
Too soon?
But history
Yeah,
says,
a time frame.
It's really hard to say until we get into December and we have our tax sale to know exactly where we're gonna end everything and all of our revenues.
but it's never since I've been following this, been less than $3 million. So we have $3 million waiting for us on December 31st, or some of it's there now in the current, because the surplus just doesn't happen the final day of the year, it's throughout the year. We have current fund balance now that's going to be surplus at the end of the year. Can we project that and apply some of that to pay down these expenses instead of as alternative to borrowing?
No.
Just pay them, I mean, just pay them and go over budget and.
These expenses must be paid.
Yeah.
At year end. They have to be paid by year.
Yeah, and we're going to have that cash because we're going to have $3 million surplus. We always do.
You're gonna have the cash for the $4 million we're gonna borrow under this emergency appropriation.
But even if we don't do that.
You can't just take cash. I just explained, we went through this whole thing. The state doesn't say to you, oh, you got 3.4 million in COVID? Use
I didn't
that
say
for
COVID. I said it's in the current fund. It's in the current fund now because we're going to end up with
They're
a current
not
fund
going
surplus
to
this
allow you
year,
to apply
as we
cash.
do every year.
It's not how it works. Ms. Eric?
I just want to clarify what this ordinance is actually doing, is that it's allowing us to raise it over 7 years, as opposed to raising the entire thing in the 2023 budget. So if we're anticipating having our health insurance come in the same number, which is about $4 million more, just anticipate, plus raising another 4 million, you're talking about $8 million in 1 year. So what we're doing by this ordinance is raising it over 7 years. That's what it's giving us the opportunity, whether we use the COVID money or not, it's giving us the opportunity to do that. So it takes the relief off of the taxpayers as much as possible.
Oh, I think that's a horrible fiscal, paying a current expense
I'm just
and
trying
putting
to-
it for 7 years, spreading it out with interest and fees 7 years down the road. I think it's a horrible fiscal decision. That's my argument.
And the local finance board doesn't willy-nilly just throw these things out. They went thoroughly through everything.
Well, I'm sure you can do this. I was hoping we would
Well,
not do it.
they
and
turn
do
a
it.
lot of people down that come in for this.
Well, yeah, you can do it. I'm not arguing you can do it. You can do it. I'm saying we're not aggressive enough of exploring options other than incurring debt to pay current expenses.
Well, we had
That's
to-
terrible fiscal
we
policy.
we
It's
had
terrible
to-
fiscal
We
decision.
had to do this in 2015 because of the storm. that hit. Remember the wind shear storm? That really only hit Gloucester Township?
Fine, but
June, yes.
Yeah, June.
I'm talking about aggressively looking to pay this without incurring debt. Using surplus, using capital surplus. We have COVID money that'll be available to us. I mean, it's there. And Mr. Cardis, your job is to find a way to take this money we know we have and use it best. New Jersey lets you manipulate things and.
I would not use the word manipulate.
Well, all right, use your word, use your word.
My job
pick
is
your
to
word.
follow the law. And my job is to do what the Division of Government Services says I can do and I can't do. I know, I knew the path to get to the local finance notice, and I talked to the council about it. I spoke with all the professionals, and everybody agreed that was the best chance that we had going up there. And they could have approved it for 3 years, 5 years, or 7 years. They approved it for 7 because they realized we got the same thing you're pointing out, is that this might be a multi-year problem.
Well, yeah, we gotta address that in future budgets, no doubt about that. I'm talking about this, I'm talking about this $4 million right now that we have, the problem we have. Instead of incurring debt, being creative with money we have it.
This is the smartest way to handle this, whether you believe it or not.
I believe it or not, I disagree with it, but thank you.
You always disagree.
Is there anyone else that has not spoken yet? Mr. Crew, followed by Mr. Sweet.
Just hearing Pete speak, he's speaking about a mentality here that, yes, applies to this situation, which maybe this situation is an outlier and assuming this bond can make sense. But he's also talking about a default mentality, which is to assume debt. And I think that's to the tune of $50 million plus now. And let's create the comparable. Obviously, this is on the small scale in the township, but let's take it to the large scale. Let's take it to the federal level. Do you council men and women believe that the $32 trillion in federal debt is a responsible way of paying for things, that it makes sense to our future children to indenture them in that way? It's the same thing here, just on a smaller scale and primarily targeted at the homeowner, the property owner. So it's a change of mentality is what Pete is speaking about. Although this is an opportunity to speak to it in a specific way, we're talking about it over years. You don't rack up the type of debt that we have in the township or the type the federal government has at that level over a small period of time. Pete is exactly right. The tough decisions are going to need to be made instead of taking the easy default route, because the costs are growing exponentially. We know that. And I agree with Ray, not necessarily envious of the CFO and of Tom Cardis. But tough decisions, just like in our household, need to be made instead of the default mentality. And we've had subcommittees and everyone up there says we don't want to raise taxes. Well, how are we going to do that if the tough decisions aren't being made? Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sweet, you still have your hand up?
Yes.
Good evening, council. I can't find where it says we're borrowing this over 7 years or paying back over 7 years on this ordinance.
It doesn't indicate that there.
So then-
You went to the local finance board, they give you options, correct?
Correct.
Okay, explain that.
Well, they would entertain 3 years, 5 years, or 7 years. We asked them for 7 years. They questioned that. One gentleman wanted to make it 5 years, but when they took the vote, even he said 7 years. They all voted on 7. So it's 7.
Okay, but it doesn't say it on here.
It may not, but it's 7.
Okay.
Should it be included in this ordinance that we're voting on? Should it be?
This ordinance came directly from Parker McKay, from bond council.
But it doesn't say 7 years. So that's why I was confused when Ms. Erat said we're borrowing this, because when I read through this, and I'm sure when Mr. Heimball and Mr. Cruz read through this, it looks like we're borrowing $4 million. Another thing she said was that if it comes in at 3.2, we're only going to borrow 3.2. And now we can spread that over 7 years, but it doesn't say it on here. So hence our confusion. I'm not trying to be as you would put it, Dan, a gotcha moment here, but we're confused by, we're saying 7 years and it's not on here.
It is 7 years. They're gonna be satisfied with this document because this is what they received.
Who's they?
The local finance. Group.
But it doesn't say 7 years. You're voting on an ordinance that doesn't say 7 years. And my concern, and I can see that Mr. Hutchinson's a little concerned by him flipping through the papers right now on it.
It's 7 years.
You can keep saying that, but it doesn't say it on the ordinance that you're voting on. So down the road, they could come back and say, well, it's now 1 year. Oh, we made a mistake. Oops. And now we're on the hook for $4 million, which again, to follow up with Mr. Heimball's point is we have the money elsewhere. If we can't determine what the capital surplus or the budget surplus is until December, and you've said, why not wait until we're going to push this off because borrowing money in December is the worst time of year because it's Christmas. So if we know we have the capital money, I mean, nobody here is going to go borrow $5,000, put it on a credit card when they have it. Why would you do that?
Section 6 may answer the question. Section 6 may answer it. It says the refunding bonds may be sold at public or private sale pursuant to a resolution of the board adopted by not less than 2/3 of the full members thereof. General obligation refunding notes in the principal amount of up to $4 million are authorized to be issued by the township, provided, however, such notes are issued and amortized within the limitations set forth by the local law and the local finance board. So,
But again, do we have paper, or is it just a handshake deal or a word of mouth? Do we have a piece of paper that says 7 years?
We will receive a piece of paper from the local finance board once they get everything. We don't have it yet. It was, they're a governing body like the state, like we are, so they will give us something when everything is done.
regardless, we cannot exceed or alter the repayment period. So the council has to cast a vote with whatever the local finance board has approved, we're limited.
Understand, but right now, I've got to take Mr. Cardis's word that it's 7 years, and I'll be honest, I don't trust Mr. Cardis's word.
You never have.
Okay, with good reason, with absolutely good reason, but I don't want to go down that road. My concern is that it doesn't say 7 years on here. It's yes, the local ordinance. My also concern is we have the money. We keep saying that we can push this off until December. So why not push it off, be able to use the capital surplus, use money that we have instead of burdening the taxpayers, burdening the homeowners?
Number one, have we answered that question?
Not really, no, because I don't see how you guys can vote with the local bond ordinance when we don't have, it doesn't say 7 years, and we have to take Mr. Cardis's word for it. Do you know that it's 7 years, Mr. Hutchinson?
We are limited by what their vote specifies. So when council votes, this section 6 sets the limitations on the payback period.
And right now, we've read it, it says, it's not clear. There's not 7 years on here. They could be 5 years.
Were you not part of that Zoom meeting?
Yes, I was.
Okay, what did the local finance board take a vote on, and how many years was it? And please indicate that to Mr. Sweet.
They voted 7 years, and it was an unanimous vote. All of the members on the body.
So why don't we have it in writing?
Because bond council, I believe bond council doesn't include it in the writing.
We'll provide a copy of those hearing minutes for you. Thank you, Mr. Sweet.
Thank you.
Gentleman with glasses, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, I'm sorry. I forget.
Good evening, Council. Barry Salvatorello, Sicklerville, Hickstown Road, 663. Just a quick question, because I'm a little confused with something that was stated, and this is probably going to be directed mostly to Mr. Cardis and
Ms. Aaron, the CFO.
Ms. Aaron.
Aaron.
We talked about the $4 million. I'm not going to ask about COVID. I already get that. If we only use $3.5 million, we only borrow 3.5. Or what I understood then you to say, Mr. Cardis, was that they give us a credit or a refund of 500,000. Are we still paying interest on the 4 million? But they're giving us a 500,000 just to use back into our budget for next year?
You'd be losing me here.
Okay, we're borrowing $4 million, expected to borrow $4 million. Now,
It should happen before December 31st.
right, okay, so, but we're guaranteed 4 million. We could stop at 3.2, 3.5, whatever.
Up to 4 million.
Up to 4 million. So I thought I understood you to say that if we only do the 3.5, we get a credit of 500,000.
You would reduce the amount you're borrowing.
But that wasn't what I understood, so I apologize.
You would reduce the note, or if it was permanent financing, you'd reduce that, but you'd reduce the note because it's in the form of the note.
And what is the rate on this?
We don't know until we approach the market. That was one of the concerns about doing it right around.
Because they're going up every day.
That's why I didn't want to do it around Christmas time.
Okay, I just needed to make sure I understood that correct. And obviously I didn't, so I apologize and thank you very much.
The note gets adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Coyne?
It's my understanding that Parker McKay gets a commission off the bonds, correct? Or a fee, some type of fee they're paid?
All the consultants, financial consultants, the auditor, the financial analyst, Parker McKay, would get a commission primarily from when you go to permanently finance. Certainly, they're going to charge us.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't use the word commission. It's a fee base.
It's a fee.
Okay,
You
so
get an hourly fee.
do we know how
Sorry,
much,
didn't mean to interrupt you.
do we know how much the fee is on a $4 million bond?
If you're asking me if I know how much the fee is for the work that was done to get us before the local finance board and to get our approval, I couldn't tell you what that is right now.
Okay, can you tell me if the fee is going to be more if it's a 7-year bond versus a 5-year bond
No,
or a
it should be
3-year
the-
bond?
It should be the same. It's not gonna make a difference.
So the,
We don't know. Right, sitting here, we don't know that.
It's the same amount of work, whether it's 3, 5, or 7. They didn't change the amount of work because of getting 7 years instead of 3.
Right, they would have had a fee in their fee ordinance that would have prepared the resolution, the ordinance, their standard set fees by their attorney. So they have set fees, and then I'm sure they have a fee in their proposal of what it costs for them to attend the local finance board. So it's not, they don't get more money, whether it's a 5, like Mr. Carter said, whether it's 3, 5, or 7 years, the fee should be the same.
okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some bias as to why somebody would recommend 7 years versus 5 years versus 3 years. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else before I go to Ms. Smithman? Ms. Smithman, Mr. Sweet, you're after her. Can I ask if there's anything that you're adding to what you previously said, those that are coming up?
I just need clarification.
Okay.
Good evening, Shawn C. Smithman, SDK Millbridge Gardens Apartment Complex, Apartment 341. If I could ask again, your name?
My name is Christy Eric.
Okay, Ms. Eric, would you mind having a microphone available to you to speak into? It's extremely difficult to hear, and people that are hearing impaired cannot read your lips. You're wearing a mask. Is it possible for somebody to give her a microphone?
Mr. Chadwell, if you bring that microphone over.
That was asked earlier, was it not? By somebody else attending the meeting? That she speak into a microphone?
Please continue.
Hello, good evening, council. The wording of this ordinance, what was brought up was that it does not state in there that it's 7 years. Ms. Aaron said that they do not have it in writing from the attorneys that wrote up the ordinance. While I am not a lawyer, I'm more of a street thug lawyer. I receive most of my law from nature. It's a little bit more painful, but it's not as much paperwork. Ordinances are very specific to things that are written. You actually had an ordinance on the October 24th city council meeting just to rewrite things that have to do with police officers. You had an ordinance just to rewrite the language explaining to police officers to comply. Now, from somebody that is ignorant to written law but knows natural law, you don't need to tell a civil servant to comply, let alone tell them again in rewritten language. They're civil servants. They get it. They got to comply with whatever you tell them. Now you're having an ordinance to rewrite or asking for $4 million, but not writing the specifics of 7 years. You rewrote an ordinance for something that was already told that should have been self-explanatory, or at least it is to the people you wrote it for. Now you're asking for a very large amount of money. It was unexpected, and you don't have all the language in there. Is it possible for you to hold off on this ordinance until it is written properly? You had stated that it's on Zoom. Is Zoom archived like newspapers? While I am not an avid newspaper reader, from what I understand, you can go to the local library and look on microfiche. They made it from the paper that it's written on, and then you can look at it in a film type form to look it up.
I didn't know microfiche still existed. Does it?
So does carbon paper.
Carbon paper.
It's expensive. It's $1 a page. I went to buy it. It's $10. I didn't pick it up. Too expensive for just for fun stationery. You said it's on Zoom, but Zoom is only backed up on a computer on a cloud on the
I
internet.
don't know if that meeting was recorded. It was a Zoom meeting. They may have recorded it, the Division of Local
Right, but is
Finance
it
Board.
archived? Just because it was
The
recorded.
Division of Local Finance Board. So just to answer your question, I am comfortable that it does not indicate 7 years here, but we have the CFO and also the business administrator on a Zoom meeting that was recorded. There will be minutes that will be provided. We'll provide a copy to anyone who wants to see that, that it is for 7 years.
And the ordinance would mean nothing if there was not a vote. Section 6 of the ordinance requires that we adhere to the vote that took place by the local finance board. There is no additional wording that is needed in this ordinance to make us able to comply with it.
But it's not written in its entirety if it did not include the 7-year period of which it was to be repaid. All that I'm asking is that it's complete is all. Like I said, I'm ignorant to administrative law. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not brilliant. I'm not overly intelligent, but I have experienced a lot of things the most difficult way possible. And like I said, while it's painful physically,
The ordinance would have no legal effect. It would have no legal effect if there was not a vote by the local finance board.
you're saying a legal effect, but they're asking how,
We could.
it's just not complete is all.
We could not do this bond anticipation note. Okay, we couldn't do it if there was no vote. It would be unlawful, it would be void.
I understand that you already have the vote. All that I'm asking is that before you approve this ordinance, 022-21 or 0-22-21, is that it's complete with the amount of time to have it paid back. Well, it's not complete if it doesn't have the amount.
Ms. Smithman, thank you very much. Mr. Sweet, Are there no Eagles fans out here? Come on. Well, tell me the score, Ray. Here you are again. All right. You can tell me the score. So, good.
Sam Sweet from Ariel. They're playing the Washington Commanders. They should win the game. So, I just need clarification here. Are we borrowing actually $4 million? Because up to, or are we actually borrowing $4 million? Up to $4 million, because I believe half hour ago or so, she said we may not have to borrow $4 million. It may be 3.2 million that we're over, maybe 3.5, 3.6. All right. So are we going to then, if it's 3.6 on December 31, are we borrowing 3.6? Or are we borrowing $4 million and then turning around? Because I believe you said we get a credit and then that will, so if it's only 3.6, we borrow $4 million, that's $400,000. What happens to that $400,000 that we now over borrowed?
I believe, and I will have to check with bond counsel and with the financial analyst, that you would borrow the full 4 million, and then whatever the difference is, they would adjust that when the bond matures, which in our case, that first bond is going to run through, I believe, July.
So
the first note.
The first note, so 6 months.
6 month note, yes.
Okay, so then that would 6 months would
The
be.
game plan, I recall speaking with Acacia and with the partner.
So do we know at this present moment what we're roughly over?
We are headed towards the $4 million.
Do we know what we're over right now? Like, if I emailed you tomorrow and said, what are we over? You could give me $3,172,062.
It's in the range of 1.4 to 1.6 right now.
Okay, so right now we're 1.4 to 1.6 over.
If I had to estimate, yes, I wasn't in the office today, but last time I was in the office, that was the rounded
Remember, there's a
number.
lag in claim.
I understand there's a lag in claims, but so you're anticipating 2.4 million in claims in the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you do switch away from being self-insured, you have what's called claim runout. That's everything that was procedurally done through the providers in 2022. The billing will not come in until 2023. So they have to estimate claims runout. I believe that's part of this.
Can you provide counsel with information on this? And I understand this, but we need a part
Of the heavy claims?
of it.
Can we stop the clock while they're discussing?
That's right, I'll ask you later. No, that's fine.
I've been up here 3 times, Sam.
I understand, but you're making me come up 5 minutes.
No,
And I know I need my steps, but. Well, I'm just now, okay, I'm confused and probably some people are there too. You're saying you were gonna be, you said you can't monitor this because of the fact that HIPAA rules, we don't know, claims lag 2-3 months. Mr. Krug said that's $1 million from July to October. You guys didn't say anything. There was no question. I asked the question of how much there is. It's 1.4 to 1.6. So now you're saying you're anticipating 2.4 million in the next 6 weeks. Yes, I understand there's lag time, but you couldn't anticipate this in July because of HIPAA rules. But now we have a number that's, it's $4 million for the next 6 weeks. We're going to hit that. We're on pace for that. If we have HIPAA rules, how do we know that? Did somebody come to you and say, hey, I'm having, a heart transplant is going to be $2 million?
Sort of, yeah. The broker came to us and met with us in confidentiality and explained to us where we were headed in terms of year-end projections, and that's what we based our numbers on.
So the broker gets the
broker
claims.
actually was sworn in and testified at the Zoom local finance board meeting. The broker was present. The broker answered a lot.
So that Zoom meeting, has that been recorded? Are there minutes? Can we,
Couldn't tell you. I don't know what the.
because,
We'll get a copy of the local finance board minutes and we get a recording. We'll get a-
so if the broker came on now and said, you're on pace for that, okay, fine. Why didn't the broker come on in August because if he's getting the HIPAA reports, or if he's seeing the claims before you guys do, why wouldn't he come to you in August and said this? The more we talk about this, the more questions come up and the less answers we're getting.
No, we were talking to them in August.
Okay, so why wasn't this brought up in August? We're borrowing $4 million. Oh, it's November. Let's borrow $4 million.
You stop the baby from being born, you stop the claim. What do you do? How do you stop it? It's a runaway train. It's going to go where it wants to go. This was a bad year. Multiple cases.
I'm not denying that it was a bad year. I'm just saying I don't understand how Mr. Krug says. I don't understand how Mr. Krug says it's $1 million a month. You guys sit here and say yes, and then I ask a question on what the number is over, and she says 1.4 to 1.6. At that point, she should have said, "No, Mr. Krug, it's not $1 million a month. It's $300,000 a month, but we're on pace for this." Why do we have to drag these answers out? It's like I'm talking to my 10-year-old and trying to figure out who broke the lamp, and I have to drag everything out of them. Yes, really. Okay, because no offense, Mr. Curtis, you have lied to us in the past.
Oh, sure.
All right.
Proven.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sweet.
Thank you.
Barry?
Good evening, Barry Salvatorello, once again, Sicklerville, Hickstown Road. Quick question. I don't want to be up here any longer. I know you guys are Eagles and I'm a Steelers fan, sorry.
DVR.
Well, they'll tell you before you leave. So we're looking at a remaining balance of $2.4 to $2.6 million for this year. Now, that's going to be claims that we have to pay out that are submitted now. What about the claims that for the procedures that are performed over the next 6 weeks that don't come in for 2 to 3 months? Does that mean that next year we have to figure out we're going to need another $3.5 million extra in the budget to cover paying those claims?
We're going to have to take into account whatever additional monies we need to budget in the 2023.
Because based on what we're talking about right now, we're going to need at least $4 million
That is correct.
for those claims. Just needed clarification of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I entertain a motion to accept ordinance 0-22-21.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
On the question, roll call please.
Mr. Murchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mrs. Albright Drexel?
I'm not in favor of borrowing money at any time, but I understand everything that was explained up here, and I understand why we need to do this, so I vote yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Ordinance 0-22-22, ordinance amending the Gloucester Township Land Development Ordinance, the Villages of Gloucester Township redevelopment plan, and the new vision redevelopment area plan. This amends, adds a new section for marijuana dispensaries and our medical cannabis dispensaries operating under a Class 5 New Jersey State Marketplace conditional or micro business license. They're conditionally permitted so long as the following criteria is met. No closer than 2,000 feet to a lot containing any other retail dispensary facility as measured by the radius from the facility's main entrance. No closer than 1,000 feet to any public or private school serving grades K through 12, daycare facility or public park as measured by the radius from the facility's main entrance. Dispensaries may utilize a drive-through window so long as the drive-through window is not the sole method of conducting retail sales, and drive-through windows shall be utilized for appointment-based pickups only. And the site provides for a queuing capacity of at least 5 vehicles. No closer than 500 feet to any single, double, or multi-family residential use as measured by the radius from the facility's main door entrance to the main door entrance of the physical structure containing the residential use. The facility may be open to customers from 8 a.m. through 10 p.m. Parking requirements should be in accordance with Article 5, Section 510 of the Gloucester Township Land Development Ordinance. Consumption area endorsements are prohibited. And lastly, the proximity buffers outlined within subsections D9 and A through D9. D shall be satisfied when a roadway with at least 4 lanes of travel, excluding turning lanes, is present within the radius measurement. The proximity buffer shall, under these circumstances, extend only to the boundary of the subject roadway. So that is the new section included in Section 1, zoning A under marijuana retail dispensaries. We'll now open up the public hearing. Ms. Smith. Again, I ask the speaker to adhere to 5 minutes. If you want to come back up again, you can come back after everyone has spoken on this topic.
Good evening, Council. My name is Shaughnessy Smithen. I live in the SDK Millbridge Garden Apartment Complex on Millbrook Court. It's apartment 341. I was reading this ordinance when I arrived at the meeting. There's a lot of guidelines specifying what distance these marijuana facilities need to be located away from. They need to be located, as you just listed them all, they need to be located away from houses, from schools, from daycares and such. I don't know if it's been considered before you vote on this to include in this ordinance to require businesses to be located within a certain distance to these marijuana distribution facilities where people are going to buy their pot. Can there be a diagnostic center within eyesight to the facilities that are distributing the marijuana? I think it's very important that since marijuana is considered recreational, and that is what these facilities are geared towards, these dispensaries are, their purpose is to sell marijuana to people for recreational use. People are going to forget really, really quickly that there are medical reasons to use marijuana. A lot of the medical reasons, or almost all the medical reasons, have a remedy if you can find the correct condition or ailment that you actually have, rather than self-medicating with the marijuana. I'm asking, since glaucoma, which without your glasses, you cannot see, smoking the marijuana will relieve those symptoms, but someone who is not required to have a medical diagnosis will most likely find the marijuana distribution facility before they get their diagnosis of glaucoma, which is treatable. If you put the diagnostic center within distance, force them to have a diagnostic business located within, I would say, 2 feet, because if you can't see, it's got to be right there. Or within a reasonable distance, within 10 feet, an adjacent store, something located right next to the facility that is distributing marijuana, have available a diagnostic center to diagnose social conditions, things such as autism. Autism is a huge spectrum of a condition. Almost all parts of that spectrum are social diagnoses. The relief for that is almost totally cured by smoking pot with your friends. That's the cure for just about everything. Love, hanging out. It'll only cure the symptoms, though. It's not the actual cure. There is actual therapy for people with those conditions who can contribute a lot more than just smoking pot with their friends, unless that's all you really want from your community. They can contribute extremely. Previously, I think that they were placed in things such as civil servants and construction. I'm just now becoming more familiar with civil service other than being pulled over when I would drive. But working in construction for years, almost everyone has undiagnosed autism that's in construction. The result is the deterioration of their bodies. If pot was made available, I don't think you'll have anyone to build your buildings, so let's just put pot. The deterioration on everything is too much, and that relieves it. That might be why it was illegal. Now you want to legalize it. You have a whole bunch of money that you play. What did you say? Double dipping was one of the terms I referred to being used. They were going to profit on the growth and then the profit on the distribution for the sale of this previously illegal drug. If you're going to do that, at the very least, give someone a chance and put within distance. For somebody legally blind, put it within distance where they can see and have access to somebody with a medical degree to diagnose different conditions that people are known to self-medicate using marijuana. Social conditions, glaucoma, poor social skills, people with in poverty, because they might be going there just to make money to sell it, even though you're not supposed to. It's still profitable, and poverty is practically diagnosable medically. There's a cure for that. You can diagnose it and help them learn how to make a business properly, rather than utilizing something that they know. They know how to smoke pot. They don't know how to contribute otherwise. They're still honest business people. You just have to get them onto the right path. Can you do that?
So you had brought this up during our workshop, and I had indicated to my colleagues on council, and I responded to you that if anyone wanted to add that or amend that to our ordinance, to reach out to me. No one did. And to be quite frank, I don't think that that's something that we can mandate a business to be located in that particular area.
Yeah, well, all it has to go by was the term to be permitted to be drafted. Took several months of this time, but a lot of other towns to come up with something that was logical, was fair, to establish it in this good sale, campus and community. And a lot of time and effort was put into the ordinance. This revision is a logical revision, thinking of the major highways across Keith Road, by the road, that seems to be a more fair approach. That's where this revision came.
Thank you, Ms. Smithman. If you would like to come back up again, if no one else wishes to speak. Mr. Sweet?
Good evening, council. Just a quick question. Does this cover the entire township or just the villages of Gloucester Township and the new vision redevelopment area plan?
Villages of Gloucester Township and New Vision redevelopment area.
So what about if someone, like, are these the only places, I guess, my question is gonna be, are these the only places that are allowed to have a retail dispensary?
Well, no, it's not. You have to look at the entire ordinance that allows it in districts and what zone. But what it's doing is amending land development ordinance in total sense to relate to these kinds of restrictions. But then it's saying you also have, so there's not confusion, that villages of Gloucester Township redevelopment plan and new vision, those areas take up not only the land use ordinance, but the redevelopment zone that has permitted uses in those zones. So we want to make sure we identify those zones also, besides the land use ordinance. So you're looking at, this property is more particularly dealing with anywhere where there's a highway commercial.
So it covers the entire township?
Anywhere where there's a highway commercial. So then you look at the main ordinance, the division, this is a highway commercial, this is residential, commercial, whatever. How those mixes fit into your land use ordinance.
Okay, and then I have other questions, but not about this, about retail dispensaries, second public portion?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak besides Ms. Smithman on this matter? Ms. Coyne?
Just a quick question on that. The Village of Gloucester amended redevelopment plan, was that ever approved? We paid for that like 2-3 years ago. Never saw it.
Village of Gloucester Township redevelopment.
We paid for an amendment to that redevelopment plan along with Blackwood West. We paid to have the Village of Gloucester redevelopment plan amended like 2 to 3 years ago. But
The planner come up with the areas. This was identified. So that Village of Gloucester Township redevelopment plan covers an area. So that's why that redevelopment plan now has this particular restrictions for cannabis sales.
But that's not my question, then. My question is.
Ms. Coyne, I'm going to find out for you when it was approved. Okay, so Village of Gloucester Township redevelopment plan. You'd indicated that we had paid for it a few years ago and want to know if that plan was ever approved. So I'll find out for you. I can't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, I want to know if it was ever even completed. We paid for it, but never heard anything about it,
I
so.
believe Stan Slahecto was working on that. And he's no longer with that firm, but I'll find out for you and I'll send you an email tomorrow. I have your email.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak on this besides Ms. Smithman? That's not spoken yet. Ms. Smithman? Ms. Smithman, if you're adding to what you said previously, I would appreciate it. You're adding something new.
Good evening, council. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. For this ordinance 0-22-22, I was speaking earlier, I was asking if you had considered placing a business, making the requirements to have a business located within proximity to force a business to be open close to the distribution that performs diagnostics. You're saying no. I understood that.
I did not say no. I
Well,
just said
it was decided not to, it was not discussed.
no one wanted to amend it.
Okay. In my experience with prescription medication being given a psychiatric diagnosis, there was constant prescription drugs. Medication has to be distributed by a licensed nurse at the very least. Alcohol and beverage control, you need to at least be of age to purchase. I believe to purchase alcohol, I don't know if it's still 21 years old, I'm now 45, so it was 21 years of age, but you only had to be 18 years old to serve it. But you had to be 18 years old to serve the alcohol. Has it been considered to require a licensed diagnostic person to distribute the marijuana? Then if you cannot force a business to be open within location proximity, can you force that they have at least one employee working at all times within the store? I don't care if it's the janitor, but somebody in that store that is capable to make a diagnosis for the multitude of conditions that people self-medicate with marijuana for.
I'm not aware of that, Mr. Parliament. I would imagine the license holder would have to adhere to certain standards set by the state board.
The license holder for the person distributing the marijuana?
The dispensary or the retail, yes.
Well, yeah, but the ordinance is set up to provide guidelines for them. Let's guide them. Let's say that we require them to have someone who is capable to make a diagnosis for the different conditions that people self-medicate using marijuana.
That's the state. That's the state.
So the state we would have to ask the state to do that.
I would imagine so.
Well, can we ask the state to do that? Well, actually, the state just gives minimum guidelines.
Contact the state and ask about regulations of that.
Well, the state just gives you minimum guidelines.
The state has all the guidelines that someone has to meet those guidelines in order to be licensed.
Yeah, but they're minimal.
It only says where it's permitted and what regulations the town wants to be coming in.
For Gloucester Township, how about Gloucester Township go above and beyond
It doesn't have anything to do with the individual getting a license to operate a dispensary or agricultural growth. That all comes from the state.
well, the state gives minimum guidelines. In my experience, as an inside journeyman wireman, we go by code. Code are minimum guidelines on how to install the electric. They're minimal guidelines. You can install it better than the code, but that's just the minimum requirement that you have to follow for safety. The state gives minimum guidelines of what you have to follow. Rather than just going by the minimum, why don't we add within Gloucester Township, if you're going to distribute marijuana in this town, that you have to provide someone that works for you at all times to be able to make a diagnosis for all the different conditions and ailments and diseases that people might have that are known to be self-medicated with marijuana, where right now we all remember that it's illegal. If it's made legal, people are going to forget why they're smoking it in the first place. To prevent that, to help people that might be smoking it, to treat actual conditions that they have, give them an opportunity to receive a proper diagnosis. Can we make that requirement for this town? For Gloucester Township, can we make the requirements for this town better, greater than the minimum requirements of the state? It would be a shining star for the state of New Jersey to have their township and municipalities do that.
We're not unable to do that, Ms. Smith.
You're unable to or you won't?
We're unable to do that. Thank you. Well, that would
Barry?
Mary Salvatore, Sicklerville. This is for medical marijuana, correct?
That is correct.
So-
No,
At present moment, it's for medical until they, I guess, have a 2-year probationary
marijuana
period.
dispensaries or medical cannabis dispensaries.
Because if it's a medical cannabis, then they are required to have a medical card from their doctor in order to purchase anything, right? So if it's recreational, then it could be whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Smithman, are you gonna add anything to what you said earlier? Because if you're not, I'm gonna cut you off. We're not putting diagnostic in the amendment or for the ordinance. Come on up.
Good evening, council. My name is Shauna C. Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. My question now is an agricultural type question when it comes to different patent rights. Well, I mistakenly am not as considerate as I should be when it comes to different trademarks and patents. One example is on the Wednesday city council meeting, it was rescheduled from October 10th, 2022, it was rescheduled to that Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. While speaking about the Wawa, the super Wawa that was going in, I had referred to children going there or people going there walking and the safety risk that they would be walking there or riding their bicycles in clusters of children, and they would be going to buy a Slurpee. I was mistaken. They would have to go to the 7-Eleven convenience store to purchase a brand specific Slurpee. You can only get a frozen drink from the local Wawa. So my apologies to the 7-Eleven convenience food store chain who does sell Slurpee drinks. When it comes to marijuana distribution, when it comes to agriculture, people get a lot more upset. Where are the seeds coming from? Is it required that these seeds are coming from places that are approved from the FDA? I mean, is it still
Ms.
it's a
Smithman,
drug?
you asked this question during our workshop and we addressed this.
You said to bring it up to actually during the city
We
council
also
meeting.
responded to it.
Yeah, you told me to bring it up during the city council meeting because it was not appropriate to
Well,
bring
this
it up
is-
during the
that was
workshop.
City council, we go to workshop and we discussed.
Well,
it.
now you can answer it. You told me to ask it during the city council
Okay.
meeting.
Ms. Smithman.
Okay, so I'm asking.
No, someone just can't have seeds and just sell them. Someone just can't randomly sell seeds.
So they can't pick the seeds up from the side of the road off of,
No, have to have a license.
they have to have a license and
Have to have a license.
purchase it from a
Yes.
agricultural supply store. They can't sell
A
wild
reputable
seeds.
license holder.
And they have that.
Is there anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna close public hearing. I entertain the motion to accept ordinance 0-22-22.
I'll make that motion.
We'll second it.
On the question, roll call please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace?
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Munoz?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is our resolution consent agenda. Any council member would like to move any of the items on the consent agenda, please speak up. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. On the question, roll call please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Ms. Grace?
Yes.
Mrs. Albright Troxel?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Munoz?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We have one GTE Gov access email. It's from Denise Coyne at 1060 Chews Landing Road. Has Ingerman been awarded LTTE pilot property relief for the Brittany Woods rehabilitation project? No, and based on the conversations that our planner has had with the applicant, they have not applied for one and do not intend to. They made a presentation earlier today at 6 o'clock at our redevelopment meeting about that particular project. Now we'll open up the second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, each speaker is entitled, raise your hand, each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes.
There's a 30-minute time limit for the public portion. Mr. Menino, can you run this while I run to the restroom?
Yes.
I'm of a certain age now, so. Who had their hand up? Ms. Hendricks. You had your hand up?
Good evening, Dina Hendry, Summerdale. As a first-generation American on my father's side, I was happy to see the celebration of Gloucester Township's National Hispanic Month, Heritage Month. As I'm a daughter of a Cuban and a Puerto Rican parents. As a daughter-in-law to a two-time breast cancer survivor, I applaud the township as they recognize the fighters of breast cancer. As a township, we even recognize National Teen Driver Safety Week on the social media page. I'm all for diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I'm also for, if you recognize one group, then you have to recognize everything. That goes for that month. Granted, I'm not saying that we needed to bring awareness to not wear a bra day on October 13th or Cat Day on October 29th. But there are some important things that were missed and that could make a difference in some people's lives in the township. Like, for instance, October was Italian American Heritage Month. I did not see any awards given for that. Also, most importantly, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is something that needs to show awareness, as there's men and women that need to know that they're not alone. That if needed, they know that there's support and resources, as the township posts about substance abuse from time to time and where they can find help. November, I see, is Native American Heritage Month, but yet I haven't seen any posts or awards wanting to be given as well. Please keep in mind, I'm all for celebrating and bringing awareness. But if it needs to be completely inclusive for all, then the township has to do it for everybody. Also, can I also ask why the township Facebook page that I see comments, but yet I can't read them. Sometimes they're deleted, but yet it shows that a post may have 30 comments, but yet you can't view them.
I'm not sure who runs the township page, you know?
We have a company.
Okay.
Don't delete them, they just hide them.
Okay. You hide them?
We have a social media company that regulates all of that. We're not allowed to delete them. We can just remove them from site. So they are there, all the comments are there.
Okay. I mean, do you have any plans on recognizing all heritages and everything like that, as opposed to just one, specific? I mean, granted, next year I'm gonna nominate my son Hunter because he's just the cutest and is trying to help and raise money for all the kids in his school. But I mean, granted, like I said, I am proud and happy that you guys do that. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're including everybody in this township, Lastly, since the last meeting that I attended on October 26th and stood before all of you, and also fellow residents and taxpayers about the letter that was sent out by Councilwoman Stubbs and Councilwoman Grace as council, I'm kindly following up to see if any action has taken place and when a retraction can be sent to the entire Gloucester Township, as the letter was dangerous, slanderous, and had racial undertones. Or if Councilwoman Grace is feeling better and is open to a conversation.
First of all, that is a political topic. There will be no council steps taken on Thursday.
Okay. But I was seeing if she was open to a conversation.
I addressed it last time, I'm addressing it again today. If you want to talk with a council person about a political topic, that should be done outside of this room.
But the letter was written as council.
This is a legislative body.
Correct, but this,
I'm not going to agree with you.
I understand, absolutely understand.
I'm not going to entertain it.
I absolutely understand, but it was written as council.
Council President, we did this last time. This is not a political.
Yeah, I don't want to continue this. That is.
It was
something-
very dangerous.
Yes, Henry, that's something that you can have a conversation with that individual if you'd like to. There are many things that are said about people in council here. If we stood at that microphone and talked about the things that are said about us.
It wasn't written as a private citizen. It was written as council.
Ms. Henry, thank you for your
It
time.
was. Okay.
Ms. Smithman?
Hello, good evening, council. My name is Shauna C. Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. If I could once again apologize to the 7-Eleven convenience food store chain for the comment I made on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, mistakenly using their trademark drink Slurpee in a reference to a different store. That one is, I would appreciate that. Thank you, because during the October 24th, 2022 meeting, while it was a very nice meeting, you had an additional celebration for Hispanic Heritage Month. There was music playing. While there was no invocation today, even though on the council agenda here it states that there was supposed to be one from a St. John's Episcopal Church, there was no invocation. There was that day. It was a nice celebration. That was October 24th, 2022. Mr. Mercado, you had mentioned that you were a graduate of Triton High School.
No, I'm not.
Or you went to Runnymede.
No,
You said you went to Runnymede, isn't that in Triton?
no,
Oh, well, you said your flag had 48 stars on it?
no. That was the mayor.
All right, well, hopefully the mayor will watch this on Zoom. We'll start alphabetically. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Which one?
You gotta go through it
Oh,
again.
Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. That was all 50 on the
Ms.
state.
Smithman, please, stop the clock. You're making a mockery of the public portion here.
No,
You are.
I'm saying to represent everyone, which is the same
And
thing
Grant, no, let me finish
that Ms.
here.
Hendry was
Let
trying
me
to say,
finish, Ms.
to
Smithman.
represent
Ms.
everyone.
Smithman, let me finish here. Someone made a comment that on our public portion, anyone can speak about any topic, okay? So we've listened to you twice go through the states of the United States, all 50 of them. What purpose is that?
To include everyone.
To include
Well,
everyone?
I was born in Hawaii.
Ms. Smithman,
That
I'm
was
gonna
the
start
last
the
state to be
clock.
ratified into the
Ms.
union.
Smithman, I'm gonna start the clock, and we're gonna let it run, and once it hits 5 minutes, you are done your time. Thank you. Start it, please.
If we could have available within Gloucester Township, which it should be made available in all 50 states on every street sign, if there's a street sign located in the United States of America, on that sign, we could put on it the address to both the local fire department and the local police department that serves that spot of planet Earth. If it's a sign that indicates what street you're on, place on that sign the local police department identifiable with a symbol for people that cannot read. Put it in raised or recessed writing for people that may not be able to write. If they could go up and place a postcard or their envelope up against it and somehow sketch the address. If they can write, then they don't need to do that, but make it an option. Put it in raised or recessed writing. If you could put it in Braille. If you could place it at wheelchair height, that should accommodate both people with a wheelchair handicap as well as children, which would need to locate how to write a letter to the local police or the local fire department. If you could have one for the police and one for the fire department, the same for the fire department, indicate it with the symbol that identifies it as the fire department. Put it in raised or recessed writing, put it in Braille, and put it at wheelchair height on every street sign. Make it a requirement. Is that possible?
No.
It's not
We've asked that
possible, or you
before.
won't?
We've asked that before, and I've told you on several occasions
Also,
that no, we would not be doing that. You have
If the-
37 seconds, Ms. Smith.
if the technology is made available to allow people to pay the fines or penalties for music, movies, or anything that they have watched or purchased that they should not have due to copyright infringement. When I saw on my son's computer that he had evidence of Napster, I have no idea if it was illegal or not. All I know is it said Napster and that was supposed to be illegal. I called the FBI. I asked the FBI how to pay the fines and penalties for that. They said that there is no way for a common citizen to pay it. So I was thinking, if it's made available with technology to have a location place to go and pay for it, tell them what you watched and pay for it. I think that the members of your community are honest enough to do that. It would be a relief to them.
You brought that up before, and we don't have the jurisdiction to do that. Thank you, Ms. Smithman. Mr. Polidoro, followed by Mr. Byrne.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from Historic Village of Ariel. First question I'd like to ask is that, Mr. Mercado, you said that you were going to check into and look to see if you could create Mr. Baroli's appearance here at a council meeting. There are some topics. I'm guessing you either hadn't got around to it or he told you no.
No.
Or you couldn't find him.
No, I know where he's at. And no, it's, what's more important here is to have our planner, Mr. Petrangelo. And that's something that I've asked Mr. Cardis to make on our semi-monthly meetings, or 2 meetings a month, to have him more present at these meetings. That, I believe, will provide more information regarding any type of planning and redevelopment and land ordinance that's taking place here in town.
What is Mr. Baroli's position here? What does he do?
He's a director of community development.
All right, is that not questions that do come up on occasion that you have acknowledged in the past? That it would be nice to have him grace us with his presence once in a while? As Ken Lechner used to be here and sit through some very long meetings without even getting one question. There were nights when he was presented and at least was here to give us answers to various things. We'd be nice to see that the guy even exists. I don't know what he looks like.
Claude Rains, as you said before.
Claude Rains, the Invisible Man. Yeah, that wouldn't be too bad.
Mr. Borelli's expertise is not in planning. His expertise is in managerial, running a department. But again, I would imagine you'll see Mr. Petrangelo here more often during our council meetings.
Okay, let me move on to the next one because I didn't want to use up my whole 5 minutes. We've got a long night already. I was curious about if this was doable. I've been here before explaining how wonderful the roads are and how well painted and resurfaced they are in Gloucester County. Our roads are like hell. Blackwood Clementon is being repaved, and it's nice. It's not a busy road for commerce, but it's a busy road for traffic, but that does work. The rest of our towns basically suck. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to blurt that. The potholes, I mean, if anyone, Mr. Mignon would probably be the only one I know up here that visits the historic village of Ariel, and you know that pothole in front of the firehouse is a tire eater rim bender.
No, I don't go that way anymore.
Just a couple more blocks, Mr. Mignon. At some point, it's bad enough that our roads are not being done while Gloucester County is getting that transportation trust fund money and putting it to good use. They don't make us look bad. We're still who we are. Eventually, we're going to get it done. But I was a little curious as to what can we do about the roads that they're jackhammering on and beating up. Is it doable that Gloucester Township could create an ordinance of some type that would fund those that do work in our town that tear our roads up, whereas they would have to restore it to the way that it was, because they put that asphalt down, and I have seen tap dancers do better tamping than these guys do when it comes to that asphalt, and it creates a whole rut, and it's never the same. Or even hold them responsible for 6 months. You want to tear our roads up, you fix it, and for 6 months you put it back the way that it was, because they run out of here after they're done the work, and there's one 30-inch, 24-inch cutout that they've done that sinks in and maybe just gets refilled. Maybe they can do something where this township can hold them responsible. If we're not going to repave the roads, let's at least restore the ruts back to where they were. Is that something our township, including county roads? I'm curious.
We did pass an ordinance where we go curbside to the center. And very recent. Yeah, that was done recently.
I'm talking about when they're running a sewer pipe and you got a cutout.
Yeah. We passed that recently.
Have you
on county roads specifically? Or are you
No, I'm
talking
talking
about
our roads.
almost
We have
anything?
no jurisdiction over the county. I have a relationship with the county. We can send complaints up the flagpole. But we can't
That's to the county. They're not going to do nothing. Our roads are as bad as they could possibly be. If they haven't done nothing, they're not going to.
On the
They
local
really.
road level, since 2019, Remington and Rennick personally we have looked at every single road opening on a Gloucester Township level. And there's been over 500 since then, and we have an inspector to go out and approve every single road opening. So we have eyes on every single one in the town.
And if I may use up 30 more seconds, and I'll call it a night. I don't need to get back up here. I was curious as to what Mr. Colomir's legal opinion was on this room being full of elected officials, also known as politicians. And it's not personal. Political conversation is free and open conversation covered by the First Amendment. And if politics are not discussed in a room full of politicians and people that follow whether they like you or not, is, I think, wide open conversation. Besides the fact that the two councilwomen brought their positions, I'm not worried about their names, but their positions into a political venue, that discussion had come about. Mr. Hutchinson, I know, is doing his regular barking on that, but I'd like your legal opinion on what can and cannot be discussed, because it's been a long night tonight, and I think politics would have been okay.
And then we'll go to our next speaker.
All right, is he gonna answer that?
The only thing I can tell you
Into the microphone, please.
The only thing I can tell you is I responded, and Mr. Hutchison was correctly responding to the conversation that was being put up in the legislative body during the course of a legislative meeting. It's not saying you can't talk about it because you're in this room, but you were addressing a legislative function, and I think his comments were correct.
If that's your legal position?
Well, be specific. Now, you're not giving me a specific question. You're talking in a general question.
My question basically is it prohibited by law?
If you want a
Township.
specific legal opinion, write me a question specifically, and I'll give you an answer.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Good night.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne.
Good evening, Councilor Brian Burns, Mayoral. Just let me say, after sitting through this evening, I think we all need some open space. I just want to like disappear into the woods for a couple hours, you know what I'm saying?
We learned a lot of things today, didn't we?
As you noted, Mr. Petrangelo was not here, and I don't know if I'm wasting my time asking you guys about the Rossi again.
we had a meeting, a Zoom meeting regarding the Rossi list. And I got some insight where it's not as easy as you might think to confirm the properties that are going to be listed on that Rossi list and aren't going to be listed. What Green Acres does is they list every property you own as being part of the Rossi list. So as we went through them, we were taking properties off of that list that we did not feel belonged to those lists because either they were developable, sellable. In one particular instance, they put the Broad Acres Drive Recreation Center on there. Well, if you're going to classify that as Green Acres under Green Acres law, you can't make any revenue from any of the projects that you have there, any of the sporting events, and that would hurt the budget. So there's a lot more to it. I know they're getting to the point where they're almost ready to submit it, but we did have a meeting.
Right, so, I mean, does anybody feel the same frustration I feel? We're going on a year now.
Well, Jake from Triad was reaching out to the owners of the Murray and what's the other property?
Hayes.
Hayes. I keep saying Hill too.
I know you guys will probably laugh at this idea. I mean, the Rossis are back ordered, whatever you want to call it. They should have been done a long time ago. And the Murrays and the Hayeses probably would have been close to settlement if whoever the responsible party was had done this at the appropriate time when it was when it should have been done, and not to the point where Green Acres says you don't get another penny until you get this stuff finished. With that in mind, would you guys consider giving the Hayeses and the Murrays a tax abatement? Because they should be off the hook for this land already. And trying to find the amount of land in a continuous tract like they have, it's disappearing in Gloucester Township. And it would be absolutely amazing that, and I'm afraid of them backing out of this thing. They signed a contract over a year ago. The contract's not valid anymore. And we're still kicking the can down the road on the Rossi. So, I mean, in good faith, it seems like every new business in the township gets an abatement. How about reaching out to Marys and the Hayes and say, look, we're going to give you a tax abatement because it's our fault that this has not taken place yet. You couldn't do it. It's not legal.
What I'm told about that Rossi list is that Rossi list hasn't been updated since 2007.
Right. Well, certainly not the Hayes and the Mary's fault.
No, but
it's obvious.
Had I known that from Mr. Lechner, I probably would have moved forward to get that done sooner.
Right, but so here we are.
But it has to be done right.
I understand, but I could have a brand new house built, from the ground up in 6 months, and here we are. We're going to be in January, February, by the time.
2 years from now, we could be looking at a parcel of property and saying, this is what we want to put there, but you can't.
I understand.
On the Rossi list.
I understand. But, at what point do we just say?
It's not just a turnkey deal.
I'm saying maybe we can find somebody else to do a better job on this.
I think we're getting to the point where we're almost done.
All right.
Like I said, I don't know whether Jake was successful in getting a hold of, certainly you can reach out to the Haynes and the Murrays and see if he spoke with them.
This was in the last 2 weeks.
It was last week.
Okay, I will reach out to them.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. If anyone else would like to speak? Ms. Smithman, you'll be our last speaker. And Ms. Smithman, I'm going to remind you, please adhere to the time.
Hello, my name is Shauna C. Smithman. I live in the SDK Millbridge Gardens Apartment Complex in Gloucester Township, New Jersey. It's considered Clementon, New Jersey, on Millbrook Court, Apartment 341. If I could remind you, Mr. Mercado, that you did not run the clock for 2 different people, including the last member of the community to speak. Mr. Burns, you did not start the clock. If I could speak from parts of the law that I have been exposed to when it comes to representation. while shopping at Irina's Closet in Merchantville, New Jersey, there was a frequent customer. Her name was Sharon Paris. She was a school teacher, a highly educated, kind teacher. She taught kindergarten, I think. She was being abused by her coworkers. They were being cruel, so much so she had to get a root canal. As they walked by her, they were threatening her in any way that they could, trying to be as legal as possible. They wrote her a letter calling her names and trying to shame her. But they wrote the letter on stationery from their school that they worked at. So the letterhead of the stationery indicated the business where they work. While it wasn't anything that the school did, it was still used as a representation of who they were. Workers employed by the state of New Jersey for a school. What Ms. Hendry is trying to say is that they were being represented. There was a letter written apparently that spoke of opinions, but it was expressed from the point of view of city council. If it's not in litigation, if it's not what did you refer to it as? May I address Councilman Hutchinson?
I don't want to waste your time.
This is not wasting time. He's saying that
You want me to take up your time?
you said it's not litigation.
Would you like me to take your time?
I don't understand the question.
Ms. Smith, please continue.
If it's not written anywhere during the legislative process that you're not allowed to do that, since Mr. Hutchinson is a graduate from St. John's Law School, if you wouldn't mind putting it into, from what I understand, after I congratulated you, you accepted the congratulations.
I did not accept it.
You said that you attended the best law school online, which was St. John's School. I congratulated, you said you finished. I said congratulations on getting your law degree. You said thank you. Oh, well, when you finish, it's really important that when you have a conversation from a member in the community, especially when it's from a single mother, teenage mother, high school dropout, stripper turned construction worker, that can make you shake your head and finger at them and say, do I want you to waste my time? You got to do better than that. This is Gloucester Township. We want better from you. You're going to be the legislator. Take it seriously, please. They don't tell you when to do that. Now, a letter was written by another city council meeting. They may not, or by another city council member. 2 members of city council wrote a letter to a member of your community. They're upset about it. The member of your community is so upset that they're speaking up. If it's not in the legislative process to speak about it, speak about how to either put it in there that you cannot do that. You have to now specifically write that you cannot do that. Not to shame a councilman or 2 council people, to make them aware. This is something that it's not in there. If they wrote it and if they're not allowed to do that, well, now you have to tell them. We are creatures of written law. There is nothing in nature that looks like a toilet. All right? Pretty much we eat and we use the restroom every day. Since we want to wear clothing and we're required to, you have to tell us. We don't just know. Your job and your goal, Congressman Hutchinson, towards legislation by taking law and sitting as a council member, we're depending on you to do these things, not to just say that you won't. Now you have a councilwoman who's new here who contributes a great deal. It upset a member of the community. If you're not going to legislate it, explain it so it doesn't happen again, to put at ease both the council people involved and the members of the community. Now, the example from Sharon Paris was that because it was written on stationery representing the school, it was not their own personal stationery, she won her lawsuit. And I think she won it with tort, which is, the lawsuit was won just based on, they just don't want you to have it. They fined and penalized the school and the workers because they didn't want them to have it. Things don't progress to that. To me, it seems from where I'm from, or my point of view is not knowing the law, it comes from people denying that anything bad happened. That's what makes it progress that way. We're trying to prevent that.
Thank you, Ms. Smithman. Have a great evening. Close the second public portion. Polling of directors.
Mr. Carlemere.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis.
Nothing to report.
Deputy Chief Nazzi.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Chadwell.
Nothing to report.
Mrs. Zarrett.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchinson.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Grace.
Have a great night.
Mrs. Albright Troxel.
Thank you for coming.
Mrs. Winters.
Thank you for coming.
Mr. Manana.
Congratulations to the boys and girls of the team that went to Buffalo, and next year they'll play for the USA. Should they make that team, there are tryouts, and everybody have a great night. Thank you.
I know his remarks too.
Mr. Mercado.
Congratulations to our honorees of GTHA. Again, as I stated earlier, that's an investment we made in our community, and we get to see that return on the investment when they're here and they're successful. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Have a great weekend, everyone.